Hi, I'm Tracy Pierce. Thanks for joining me for this Live with the Animals video series. So this series really was born out of what was happening here in the United States as COVID started to make its appearance back in March of 2020. I became really curious what the animals thought about this whole situation in the world. And it led to doing multiple interviews with all kinds of domestic and wild animals. And, as time has gone on, there have just been more animals coming forward saying, hey, Tracy, we've got some wisdom we want to share too. And so I'm just continuing to talk with the animals, and the conversations have been so interesting. So today we're going to talk with a Woodhouse toad. Let me pull its picture up here for you. All right. So a couple of weeks ago, we talked to another Woodhouse toad, and that one was probably, I would say, like the size of a fist. And so this one is more, I would say, at the time I took this picture, might be like, I don't know, the size of, what is that, a $50? I'm not even sure. Maybe like 2 or 3 inch diameter. And so this is, we kind of were thinking this might be one of the offspring of the larger Woodhouse toad that we talked to a couple of weeks ago, but I'm not 100% sure. And it's interesting, this particular little toad, we've seen it come by a lot. It used to come by almost nightly, and then we had this weird weather here in Colorado where the first week of September we had snow and below freezing temperatures. And I know it was kind of hard on the wildlife and the outdoor animals. And for a while we weren't sure if this little toad had made it through that cold weather, but a couple nights ago we saw it again, traveling along the path that it goes sometimes, and we've seen it one other time too. So it seems this toad is still alive. So I'm interested to see what it has to share with us today. All right, so if you're joining me live and you have questions, if you are on Zoom, just click on the chat button on Zoom, type in your questions, and if you're joining me live on Facebook, just type your questions into the comments. So I'm going to go ahead and get quiet and start tuning into this little toad. So the first thing I feel come forward is just like this friendliness. It's saying it has a real affection for my husband. It has been coming by, it seems like, to say hello to him. So it's showing me when the toad comes by, my husband will go out and he'll like crouch down, kind of in a sort of looks like a frog position, right? But just kind of squatted all the way down. So he's kind of more on the same level as the little toad. And the toad says, I'm very entertained by that. Like, here's this really huge animal, like getting down and kind of mimicking the kind of stance that I might be in. He thinks it's humorous. So it seems like you're showing me that you're a male toad, is that correct? Yes, okay, male toad. And can I ask you, are you one of the offspring of that bigger toad that we talked to earlier? It says, well, I'm not exactly sure. Like we aren't attached to our mothers in the same way that mammals are. So that could have been my mother, but there's a separateness. It's not like I was nursed by her. I came out of an egg kind of thing. Yeah, so maybe. Okay. It's kind of a different relationship we have with our families, if you want, like our biological families, than humans or even other kinds of mammals have. Like there's just a different thing going on there. All right. So my little toad friend, I wonder, what you might like to share with us, kind of an open forum for you. I wonder what kind of toad wisdom you might want to share with us. So it's showing me, this is interesting. It's somebody else I know. I'm hesitant to give too many identifying details, but this man, he has sort of a frog or a toad-like kind of appearance almost. And he's showing like particularly the throat envelope or the throat area, um, how like this man has needed toad or even kind of a frog kind of energy. So he's saying there's some overlap here with being big in the voice and having, the toad is showing how, sometimes when toads or frogs are breathing, but you can, like, there's that movement that happens in the throat, and how people, and he's showing this is also applies to my husband, in case you're listening there, hon. This is like learning how to use voice in a kind of projecting way. So these two people that I'm like, my husband and this other person are like kung fu martial art kind of people, and showing how like through that process of being a teacher or kung fu, there's part that's using your voice, and especially through teaching, like and it's easy to feel that power and that bigness in the voice as you're teaching or giving information about kung fu or martial arts. But there's a way to bring that same kind of vibrancy or energy into daily life, is what the toad is saying. Yeah, so people who are either dreaming about toads or frogs or seeing a lot of toads or frogs in their life, this toad is saying that has a lot to do with learning how to, it's like being big in your throat area or the throat chakra, without overpowering or knocking people down. There's like a bigness, and there's almost like this structure of uprightness that the toad is showing here. Is there more you want to say about that? I feel like there might be a little more. So the toad's saying, if you're watching this and you feel like you're somebody who really needs to get into your throat energy, the toad is showing like singing. Like this could be as simple as like putting your favorite CD or MP3, whatever, on, and really like using your voice and singing along and not being concerned whether like you're able to be in tune. Like it's not about being a good in tune singer necessarily, but like getting used to start projecting that voice. And the toad is also showing, that could be singing groups. Like maybe there's something about being in a group that feels important. The toad is showing me like some different singing groups that I've been a part of, like, look in your local area and see what might be available. Or, sometimes there's even these online groups now in the time of COVID that, do singing together. And what else is there? There's something else there. Oh, showing like the other groups of, there's plenty of spiritual traditions that include chanting, like Kundalini yoga or other, like I think Buddhism has even some different chanting kind of traditional things. Like it's not about one particular thing that you do. It's like finding the right resonance with you on your own spiritual path or your own journey, like, or really finding a way to exercise and use this throat energy. There's a way of it becoming bigger. And yeah, this little toad is showing like I'm still kind of learning how to use my voice. Like my particular breed, we don't really we don't have the loud croaking like some of the other frogs or toads you might be familiar with, Tracy, saying. But there is like this, this toad is still small. Is saying as I'm getting bigger, I feel like how important my own throat energy is as I'm coming into being an adult. Hmm, okay. All right, so we got a question coming in for you. Do toads especially like kids or not so much? I remember there being toads around my house as a child that we would pick up. I really liked the toads. That's interesting because my husband was telling a very similar story, so he might have a similar question. We used to hang out with the toads a lot when we were kids, and actually, I did too. I remember going to the creeks and hanging out. So, what are your feelings about that? Like the little kids, or even the grown-up kids, I guess. Yeah, we do like the kids, and it is because they have this like childlike curiosity. Like they're so curious about us, and they just want to know more. He says, especially like like it's saying like when the kids are too young, they're more likely to like accidentally smash them because they don't understand. So he's saying like kids, especially somehow he's saying like 5 and older, they have more awareness of uh, being gentle, especially. And the toad saying, it's interesting that because I can really tell which kids already have pets and which kids have not had pets. In the way, like it's not so much about their level of curiosity, but the way they try to handle us. And we do find ourselves kind of curiously drawn to them as well. It feels a little bit safer to try to interact with kids rather than adults just because of size. Like adults might be more likely to not even see us because they're so tall and further away from the ground, whereas kids, because they're shorter and their eyesight is better generally, are more likely to see us and not step on us, especially if they have curiosity. So to saying, of course, there are, bad kids that do smash us and do bad things to us. But in general, yes, we're very interested in kids. And we really like the adults that still act like kids. And he's kind of showing my husband again, who it's funny when this toad comes around, he kind of looks like a little kid again. So, all right, checking for any other questions you might have for our little toad friend here. All right. So, Toad, is there anything else any other wisdom that you want to share with us that was really interesting about the voice and the throat area? And, oh, I see we have another question popping up here. So do you mind being picked up, or does that feel kind of invasive? How do you feel about that? Well, it's not like me personally, I'm not really a fan of that. I don't really want to be picked up necessarily. It feels like the curiosity, the picking up is really a lot to do with curiosity. The toad is saying we tend to get picked up more by kids, saying, well, most of us are going to try to get away because we're not 100%, like sometimes it's hard to tell which kid is going to smash you and which one is not. Um, like it says generally we can tell, but if there's any kind of sense of uncertainty about that, we're obviously going to try to jump away. So do you feel like other toads like to be picked up, or is it really like an individual kind of thing? Says, well, I'm not really sure how to answer that. He says there might be toads that, like to be as a pet or something. He's like, I don't know any, but says I really feel like toads belong more in the wild. He is showing me like a zoo kind of setting and situation. And he's saying, well, that can be okay too, because then humans get to learn about us. And this toad feels like that's important. And he says, those toads, they are generally provided enough of an environment that's natural to them that he says he feels like most of the toads in zoos don't really mind. Um, he says there is, and he said he wants people to understand that, like, yeah, sometimes it really sucks being captive in a zoo, but that there are some animals that do like it, and that there are some animals that feel that them being in the zoo provides some kind of education for humans who may not otherwise know, or you know, maybe only see a picture, or something like that. He says, I'm not like saying, oh, I'm pro zoo or anything like that. He's just saying there are, um, he's saying he feels like they're, to come back to the question of being picked up, like he feels like there, some of the toads that are in the zoos feel like that's a better situation where they're not really necessarily being handled by kids or the public, but they're able to display themselves and educate. Whereas there are toads out in the wild that maybe feel a bit more comfortable being held and handled um, than others, but generally we don't like to be handled. Yeah. Okay. That was kind of a very roundabout way of answering your question, I think, there, Kim. Um, Anything else, Toad friend, you would like to share with us today that you feel is really important? Well, I feel like I have a lot of hope for the evolution of the planet, the evolution of all the different species on Earth. The toad saying, you know, things may seem really kind of messed up right now, you know, showing like climate change and the global pandemic kind of situation and all these natural disasters that are happening around the world in 2020. Um, it's like, yeah, I don't know what's going to come of this, but there, it feels to him like there's hope for the situation. And they say it's not like I'm expecting some hero. It's like showing me all these movies or like TV series I've seen recently where there's some hero that comes in and like saves the world kind of thing. It's like I don't really see that, but like crisis is saying like crisis tends to bring people together, and these crises that are happening in the world are a chance for humanity to start looking at situations and, you know, the world in general from a different kind of perspective. The toad saying sometimes it takes a real like crunch creating a crisis. He's saying like, oh, hey, remember, you know, that saying of sometimes the pain of staying the same has to be greater than the pain of change in order for especially humans to change. I says animals are a little different, like we just kind of we have to go with the flow of things, but um, yeah, it's just showing like there's this different configuration of how humans are thinking about things. It feels like this is really going to create. Wow, that's pretty incredible. Well, thank you, my toad friend, for sharing your wisdom with us here today. And thanks to all of our viewers for joining us or watching later. I hope you'll join us some other time. If you've missed any of the previous events, you can go check those out. I've got most of them uploaded on my YouTube channel. So if you're interested to see what many, they have got so many different kinds of animals there that I've talked to. So go check it out. Anyway, I hope you'll join us again sometime. And until then, take care and be well.